All right, let's jump right in. Today, we're diving deep into a truly chilling and mysterious piece of folklore. We are going to be breaking down Chapter 7 of the Taboot story, specifically focusing on the dark descent of our main character, Damayanti. This is one of those tales where human greed, betrayal, and dark magic just violently collide. So, let's get into it.
Just imagine for a second waking up to this haunting whisper in your sleep. Come away, Damayanti. You are not fit for this world. Creepy, right? Well, this isn't just some fleeting nightmare. Damayanti is plagued by this recurring, haunting vision of four men carrying a coffin through a pitch-black jungle. It is a terrifying omen. But, as we're going to see, the real monsters in her life, they aren't just in her dreams.
So that brings us to Section 1, Nightmares and Oppression, a life of torment.
See, Damayanti's psychological torment is actually deeply rooted in her waking reality. She isn't just haunted by ghosts. Her own father sees her as literally nothing more than a useless burden, simply because she's a daughter. And the absolute breaking point, 500 gold coins. That is the sickening price tag her dad puts on her life. He actually hatches this plan to forcefully marry her off, or honestly, basically sell, his 25-year-old daughter to an elderly zamandar just for that cash. Overhearing this cruel transaction completely shatters her world, so she waits for her parents to fall asleep and just flees into the terrifying, pitch-black night.
But here's the thing, the world outside is incredibly dangerous. Before we follow her escape, we kind of have to look at what's actually happening in the surrounding village. Strange, really gruesome deaths are popping up. Take a man named Mohan, for example. He's lured into the woods by this beautiful woman who looks like a divine apsara. But the second he embraces her, her eyes glow this demonic red. Later, he's found dead, hanging from a tree, and his body is turned a pale, sickly yellow. This really sets the stage for the massive supernatural threat, this dark magic that's looming over the entire region.
Moving right along to Section 2, the illusion of safety, seeking sanctuary. So, with literal monsters in the woods and a monstrous father back at home, Damayanti is desperately searching for a safe haven. She really hopes to find refuge among humanity, thinking surely someone out there will treat her with just a little kindness. She escapes her father's house, barely survives a terrifying stint in an abandoned jungle hut where those ghostly voices just keep taunting her, and eventually she seeks an audience at the palace of King Bhim Singh. And at first, it actually seems like her prayers are answered. The king listens to her tragic story, praises her virtue, and offers her sanctuary. She really thinks she's finally found a just and righteous savior.
But then comes the ultimate betrayal. You are our maid. Fulfill the duty of a maid. By day, King Bhim Singh played the part of the benevolent ruler perfectly. But by night, fueled by alcohol, he summons her to his chambers and violently assaults her. And honestly, what makes it even worse? The palace guards are just standing outside, smiling at her screams. This horrific event just completely and utterly shatters her faith in humanity. The realization finally hits her. That voice in her nightmares, it was right. She really doesn't belong in a world full of such cruel humans.
Which leads us directly into Section 3, cremation ground and dark magic.
Broken, abused, and just completely disillusioned, Damayanti travels deep into a desolate cremation ground. There, she meets a mysterious, half-burnt woman, a practitioner of the dark arts known as a tantrika. Now, this is a dark alliance built entirely on mutual deception. Damayanti, she wants sanctuary and the power to take revenge against a cruel world that has only ever used her. She's actually willing to completely renounce her belief in God to learn the dark arts. But the tantrika has a much more sinister goal. She promises Damayanti immense power, but secretly, she's plotting to use her as a sacrificial vessel to steal her youth.
And that brings us to Section 4, the Tantrika's terrifying plot.
To unlock this so-called dark power, Damayanti unknowingly agrees to perform a grueling, just exhausting 3-night ritual orchestrated by the Tantrika. Night 1, she has to sit completely still and bathe in freezing, cursed water in the dead of winter. Night 2, she memorizes these incredibly complex dark mantras. Night 3, she perfectly chants these mantras from midnight to dawn, blowing her chanted breath into an earthen pot filled with water. And she does this flawlessly, night after night, completely unaware of what the Tantrika is actually doing with that pot during the day.
Well, driven by suspicion, Damayanti decides to secretly follow the Tantrika deep into the jungle one morning, and what she witnesses is pure nightmare fuel. She watches the Tantrika stop right in front of a massive, terrifying statue of a demon goddess. Then the horrific truth comes out. The Tantrika pulls out a bound young boy and brutally sacrifices him to the statue. Damayanti suddenly realizes she hasn't just allied with some simple tantrika. No, she's aligned herself with a bloodthirsty Dian, a literal dark witch.
Turns out, the witch's ultimate goal is to become a Karna Pishakini. If you don't know what that is, it's a supernatural entity that grants the wielder the horrific power to hear people's most secret thoughts and see their entire past just by looking at them. The Dian is planning to drink the enchanted water Damayanti has been preparing, gain this ultimate power, and then just discard her own burnt body to possess Damayanti's young, vibrant one instead. Talk about a parasitic motive, right?
Now we're at Section 5. Damayanti's terrifying form, the final night.
So we have finally reached the last night of the ritual. Damayanti is now fully aware of her impending doom. The Dian is just watching her hungrily, waiting for the sun to rise so she can finally claim her prize. Which brings up a massive question, especially considering everything we've seen so far. Will Damayanti become a victim once again? Is she really going to allow herself to be used, abused, and discarded by a cruel world one last time?
The answer to that is a resounding, absolute no. As dawn approaches and the Dian eagerly steps forward to drink from the earthen pot, Damayanti completely flips the script. She pretends to finish the ritual, but right as the witch reaches out, boom! Damayanti pulls out a hidden dagger and violently stabs the Dian. And while the witch is writhing in agony, Damayanti grabs the pot, drinks that incredibly powerful enchanted water herself, and violently smashes the vessel on the ground. The Dian lets out this piercing scream and literally crumbles into ash.
What happens next is this chilling, dark ascension. A violent, totally unnatural storm whips up out of nowhere. It physically lifts Damayanti into the air and throws her right at the feet of the demon goddess statue. Then, the voice of the goddess echoes out, declaring that because Damayanti killed the witch during the ritual, she hasn't just survived. She's absorbed all of the Dian's dark magic, plus the psychic powers of the Karna Pishakini. In that moment, she is crowned as the ultimate, most powerful Dian in existence.
And that leaves us with an incredibly dark, thought-provoking question to chew on. What will someone who has lost complete and total faith in both humans and God do with such terrifying, unstoppable power? I mean, Damayanti started this story as a victim, but now she has become its greatest predator. Thank you all so much for joining me for this explainer. I absolutely recommend diving into the source material to see exactly what kind of nightmare Damayanti unleashes next. Catch you next time.